The representative from New Mexico, Ms. Leger Fernandez, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Acting Secretary Sue. I want to begin with an apology for the disrespectful behavior by some of my colleagues, rather than allowing you the opportunity to provide substantive answers to their questions. You've been interrupted numerous times. I also want to clarify, the Senate has never rejected your nomination. In fact, your nomination as Deputy Secretary was passed, and your nomination as Secretary was passed out of the appropriate committee. The fact that you have stood with workers and workers' families should be something that we all celebrate, because that is indeed in your job description. And we appreciate it. I know that the workers and the workers' families in my district and in my state appreciate it. I want to also thank you for doing a great summary in response to some of the earlier questions about how far our economy has grown, how many jobs we've added in the last 4 years, especially when you answer the question, are we better off today than we were 4 years ago? 4 years ago was dark under former President Trump, right? People were unemployed. They were worried about losing their apartments. As you pointed out, you couldn't buy toilet paper, right? It was scary. It was dark. And because of the investments that were done, we have come out of that. But there is a lot more work to do, especially in rural areas that I represent. We know that education, skills, apprenticeships, those make a big difference in securing better paying jobs. And you need the better paying job if you're going to fight the inflation that has been, let's be honest about it, fueled by greedy corporations who record profits are basically on the backs of consumers. Let's be honest about where inflation comes through. And there's some great Federal Reserve articles about that. But these certification courses that are really important, I think, for apprentices and other ones, they don't always apply in rural areas. In my district, an aspiring welder or commercial driver would have to drive 3 hours round trip to get to some of these federally funded training programs. So I want to see if you can talk about expanding the Department of Labor Force's Workforce Opportunity for Rural Communities initiative so that we can start granting those funds in Western rural communities. On a bipartisan basis, right? Well, the rest is checkerboard, blue, red. We need to get that funding out there. How do you see that? How that would make a difference if we moved it to the West in rural communities?
Thank you, Congresswoman. And yes, the workforce opportunities in rural communities is something that that we wanted to do in order to make sure that we are really achieving equity, that every community is seeing benefits from the investments that are being made. And we are now, I think, on the 5th round of those investments. And being able to expand them will only allow us to further reach individuals, families, communities who have been left out for far too long. It's an important time to do it as well, because part of President Biden's vision is that we invest in every single community. So for example, when we build, make sure that there's reliable, high-speed broadband in every community, the ability of people who live in that community to actually work on those jobs is really, really significant. And so our workforce opportunities in rural communities grant helps to make sure that that can happen. Congresswoman, if I could also just mention, because you were here and the Congresswoman Wilson just left, but you both have youth build grants as well that we just announced in your districts. And that's another way that we supplement the workforce programs to make sure that we're reaching all communities, and that one's obviously, as you know.
I have an appropriations letter where hopefully we'll start seeing some of these programs in my district. I want to quickly turn to something else that both New Mexico and other places like Arkansas and Missouri, the arts and recreation, the creative sector really makes a difference, about $1 trillion to the economy. I want to have the Department of Labor work with us to explore how federal workforce development programs, such as apprenticeships, can better serve non-traditional sectors like the arts, like outdoor recreation. We just passed the Explore Act on the floor of the House, led by Chairman Westerman, my Republican colleague from Arkansas. He talked about what they're doing in terms of that kind of economic growth in these rural areas. Would love to work with you on that and look forward to talking about that more in future, because I have run out of time and I am going to yield back. Thank you so much.
I would love to work with
Acting
you on that.
Secretary Sue.
The representative from Kansas,